What's up, Hoosier Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Report. I'm here with Sean Ratcher. Indiana football team is 8-0. AP polls came out today. Indiana still 13 in the AP poll and the coaches poll. No movement there. Don't agree with that. But let's talk about this game. Indiana 8-0 beat the Washington Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought a pretty solid performance from the Hoosiers. I think a little bit slower on the offensive side with Taven Jackson coming in. I feel like that's, kind of a big adjustment from the play calling side. On defense, D'Angelo Pond's just absolutely unreal. Two huge interceptions, a pick six in there. And then on the special teams side, Miles Price, the big return. I think, we clicked in all three phases pretty well. Obviously, there's a lot to clean up from the tape, but you're still beating the team, still 8-0. Great start. Heading into this week, definitely looking to see if Curtis works back.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that quarterback play, Taven Jackson. I think he did everything that he was asked to do. Obviously, you could look back, watch game film. There were probably some plays where he could have made better decisions, but at the end of the day, he was asked to go out there, lead the Indiana football team to an 8-0 start, a win versus the Huskies, and that's exactly what they did. And I mean, this Husky team is extremely well coached with Jed Fish at the helm, but Steve Belichick is that defensive coordinator, and he follows exactly what Bill does. His one goal is to stop a team's best thing and make a player beat him. So he decided, let's stop the pass. They have one of the top pass defenses in the country. And they said, Taven, you have to beat us with your legs if you can't beat us with our arms. And Indiana football ran the ball 52 times. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. So speaking of running, let's kind of move from Taven and the quarterback room over to the running back room. I thought pretty solid week overall. I think the one question mark for me was kind of what happened on that goal line stand where you saw right before the half, the Hoosiers get absolutely stuffed by the Washington defense. I think it was schemed up pretty well, but I guess that was the only disappointing thing really from the running back room. I thought overall they played pretty well. I think Justice Ellison's a guy that anytime he gets the ball, you're getting 3 or 4 yards. And there's times where, there's certain play calls where I'm watching the game and I'm like, you might as well just give the kid the ball again. I mean, he's just pound every single time right up the middle, 4 yards. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, and I mean that running back room, that staple of running backs they have, it's kind of a three, almost four-headed monster with Elijah Green. I don't believe he got a carry this past weekend, but when he does, he is electric. He does have 5 touchdowns on the year, which is pretty good for your fourth string running back. But one thing they really do well is they fall forward. Um, the guys in that room do not take tackles for loss, and quite frankly, this past game, Indiana did not give up a single tackle for loss. They didn't give up a single sack, and they only had one penalty all game. So it's pretty clean from them. Great play by that offensive line. Great play by the running back room. And there were opportunities definitely for tackles for loss, but they broke all those tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Always fell forward, and kept pounding that rock.
Yeah, I think from the offensive line side, I think this probably was not the best game they played, but still a pretty clean game. Which I mean, from what we've seen in years past, we're talking pretty high level when a team is playing as well as they did, and we're talking about, oh yeah, this isn't their best game. In years past, like this is a team that Washington defensive line probably would have torn apart the 2021 through 2023 Indiana offensive line, but they're pretty solid, and I think I'm really impressed with our two guards. Drew Evans is a guy that was a walk-on at Wisconsin, and Bob Bostad brought him over. He's not a huge guy by any means, a little bit on the shorter end for a Big Ten guy, but has held his own. And then Bray Lynch on the other side, both of them I think have done great for being younger guys that have very little experience. And then obviously, with the three other vets you got on the line, it's kind of hard for them not to be good. And I think their communication is really what's held them together and help them rise to the top of this conference.
Yeah, and I think touching on what you just said, communication is what we've really seen shine out of this kind of for offensive line, and it's something in the past that may have not been there. But I think the film study with Bostad, they go into this game extremely confident. They're able to adjust in the fly. Um, some of that has to do with new. I believe there's some iPads on the sideline. There's a lot of more coaching on the sideline where they're able to come off the field. It's no longer a whiteboard. Hey, a coach would be like, "Hey, what'd you see out there?" Now it's a here's the picture, exactly what it was. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's look for this. And that communication starts with Mike Kadick. Every snap, IDing the mic, kind of IDing that front, and they've just been doing a really awesome job with communication. It really shows up, and that's a big reason why they're 8-0.
Yeah, so now kind of bumping it out to the receiver room. I think this is a game where I was looking at the stats, and you don't see one guy in this receiver room really kill it by any means every single game. Like you don't have a breakout receiver of the game. It's they spread the ball out so much that it's hard for them to put doubles on any receiver or any tight end just because they're going to throw outside then back inside then back outside, and you're getting 8 9 guys touches. It's I think almost impossible for a defense to win these matchups because it's all one-on-ones. Anytime you double a guy, you've got a just as talented guy on the other side wide open.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. I wouldn't say there's a true number one wide receiver on Indiana football. Yeah, we could say, of course, let's say Elijah Surratt's at number one receiver, but this ball gets spread around to almost everybody. Everyone's touching the ball. That it's you're not going to see a defense. Let's double 13. Let's get them out of the game, and then Indiana's going to fall apart. It's just not something that's going to happen, and it's a very unselfish room, which is big credit to the wide receiver coach there, and just having that mindset that, oh, I want to see you block downfield. I want to see you line up correctly. I want to see you in a run play, and then we'll feed you the ball. And they're just doing a great job on the edges, sealing blocks, and especially downfield catching the passes. Um, I'm really looking forward to next week. We have Michigan State. Michigan State doesn't have the best DBs. We'll talk about that next Thursday on that preview. But that should be another big game for these receivers.
Yeah, I think one thing too I've noticed is this receiver room blocks very, very well, which is really not something you see across college football. A lot of times, guys that are just very athletic and can make plays, but I think our blocking on the edges has been really good, which allows those running backs to kind of beat that second level defender. But I think overall we've seen a very, very good year so far from this room, and I don't really see it stopping anytime soon. Kind of moving on to the defensive side of the ball, Rick. What'd you think of the front seven?
The front seven was great this game. Jonah Coleman is a guy. He's going to be NFL guy, Sunday guy. Really awesome running back. But the front seven, especially both those edges, Marcus Burris, Linnell Carr, Mikhail Kamara, all three of those guys, even Marlon Dino is in there a few. Yeah, and they just rated a really tough, challenging game for that Washington quarterback, Will Rogers. He did have two interceptions. A lot of that had to do with the pressure in his face when he's dropping back.
Yeah, I think one guy that we really haven't talked about a ton on the pod, but absolutely incredible so far is Mario Landino. I mean, he's a true freshman coming into this year, and just he has the body of a senior. And it's one of those guys that plug and play guys out of high school in the front seven are not really happening that often nowadays with the transfer portal. But I think what I was really surprised by with this group was we talked about in our preview Giles Jackson, who was a Michigan transfer a couple years back to Washington, and he was one of their guys that flashed at kind of the slot and a little bit in the backfield during the playoff run last year. He had one touchdown early on in the game, but I thought we kind of took away those looks from Rodgers, which kind of led to them, getting more into their tight ends and a lot more checkdowns. But I think I've been impressed so far with kind of the pass coverage from Aiden Fisher. I feel like he finds a way, even if he's out of position, he finds a way to get back to where he needs to be. I mean, he's very quick. And for a linebacker, you don't always see that. You see a lot of guys that kind of get their feet stuck in the ground and, can stop the run game, but not the pass game as well. And I think this was a game where I felt like Isaiah Jones kind of turned it up a notch. I thought he played pretty well, especially on special teams. Beginning of the game, that first kickoff, great coverage from him. But he's a guy that I think the more he develops, the more of a weapon he'll be. But I think from a schematic standpoint, a mental standpoint, he's definitely an elite level guy in terms of just being able to see things open up on the field.
Yeah, definitely. We talk about kind of those linebackers in coverage. Aiden Fisher, there's a play in that game that he would love to have back. He had two hands on the ball. He was taking that for six. Uh, but still great. He was in the right spot where he needed to be, drop that ball. But Jalen Walker's another guy who doesn't get talked about a lot, but Jalen Walker, number two, is a very strong, versatile linebacker. Really can spread around that field in pass coverage, deep stopping the run. Just a really good all-around player. But talking about pass coverage, um, I mean, breakout game for D'Angelo Pons. My definitely my MVP of the game. So let's talk a little about kind of the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Pons is the MVP of this game. Just two interceptions, a pick six, absolutely incredible. He's a guy that, if you watch the way he plays, he's very rarely out of position. He turns his eyes at the right times, and he always has a play on the football, which a lot of times DBs are just these overly athletic guys. That's a lot of times why you see PIs is because they either miss, when they're supposed to turn, kind of miss a read off the start. But he's a guy that I feel like is rarely ever out of position. And kind of complimenting him, I feel like Amari Farrell had a great game. And they sat Josh Sanguinetti a couple weeks back. We haven't seen much of him, but Bryson Bonds has filled into that role fairly well. I mean, there was a couple plays where he came down, from the top of the secondary, read the run game well, and, had a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. So I think that combo of those three guys has really risen this DB group to a level. I don't know if we've seen Indiana DBs play this well since kind of the Taiwan Mullen group in 2019.
Yeah, and I mean we have guys Jamari Sharp out there, Bryson Bonds, Josh Sanguinetti when he was in a few JoJo Johnson. It's just a really good uh core group in that secondary who really they have their eyes not always in the backfield, but they're like they know when it's run pass. They're always there in the right spots. Um, they've just been playing really well all season. It's really allowing this tight coverage that they're giving is allowing the front seven to get this pressure on the quarterback. Um, two takeaways for D'Angelo Pons, huge. Uh, I mean, Indiana hasn't trailed yet this year, and you have to give almost all the credit to D'Angelo Pons. Washington was going in to score. They were in field goal position to make it the first time Indiana football is going to trail pick six. And amazing play by him, reading that screen, just awesome play. Hoosiers still haven't trailed 8-0. Really exciting for the future of this team.
Yeah, I think both sides of the ball were in a great position. Kind of moving on to the special teams group. I've been pretty impressed so far with Grant Kane's special teams. I think he doesn't try to do anything too flashy. And I think in years past, that's where we might have struggled, is sometimes we would do things that were a little bit almost schemed up too much. I feel like he kind of does the basics well. Beginning of the game, there was a punt return that I thought Miles Price danced around a little too bit, but then he kind of redeemed himself in the second half with a huge return. From a kickoff coverage standpoint, I feel like it's rare that we're, giving up a big play. There's been one or two, but nothing crazy. And then on the punt side, I thought this was James Evans' best game of the year. He averaged 45 plus. Every ball was above a 4 or 5 hang time. I think he hasn't gotten many opportunities, to really show off his leg, but given the opportunity, I think we won that field position battle, and I think it really set up the defense to succeed.
Yeah, and just overall amazing game from the Indiana football team. But I think the star of the show, we have to talk about the fans. We have to talk about college game day being in Bloomington. Packed house, packed the rock, sold out the rest of the season. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to mention is the college game day segment on Lee Corso and his holiday bowl team. I thought that was one of the best college football segments I've seen all year. And obviously, I'm a little biased, but just seeing the way that they kind of portrayed him and the way he interacted with his guys, I thought was special. And it's one of those things that the way the coaching carousel works and coaches are bouncing around, getting fired, getting hired, it's rare that a school like Indiana that has not had great success in football can bring a coach back and he's as well respected as I thought Lee Corso was by the Bloomington community this past Saturday.
Yeah, just an awesome segment. We saw guys that we kind of been around the program in that segment. Terry Talent, obviously Mark Deal, just two great guys for the Indiana football program. They do great things, give back to that program immensely. I mean, College Game Day was electric. Pat McAfee had that place going nuts. Really cool to see how much this fan base has wanted Indiana to succeed. There is a lot of buzz around the campus in Bloomington, but they've always wanted to support the Hoosiers, but it's been hard. I mean, when you're 9-27 last 3 seasons, it's hard for a fan to go all in, go to every game, tailgate. It's for as fan perspective, it'd be disappointing, and I understand why the students in the past weren't going to the games or leaving early. But this is I'm a new age kind of for these Bloomington students. Just really awesome to see all those kids go to college game day. McAfee hyping them up, the respect that they got, and the crowd was the energy was really really cool.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that it's good to see Indiana succeed. I mean, all of the pieces I feel have always been there. This is one of the largest alumni bases in the country. This is a school of 50,000 plus undergrad students. You've got an incredible historic basketball team, and you've got a football program that's just been dormant, waiting to take off. And I think we saw a little bit of it in 2019 and 2020, but 21, we didn't redeem ourselves. We didn't continue to grow the program the way it should have. And I think Sig's got it going in the right direction. One thing I want to talk about, we've seen a lot of talk on social media about, other teams trying to poach Sig. And obviously we know that's going to happen. There's going to be SEC programs, other Big Ten programs, they're gonna come at him with offers. And I think what I kind of want to discuss is from a monetary and athletic department position, what does it have to look like to keep Kurt Signetti around?
Yeah, and I'll kind of let you go in detail with that, Sean. Obviously, you got to pay the man, so let's let you talk about that.
Yeah, I think obviously the big thing is you got to pay the guy. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, he's 63 and he already said in an interview that he loves Bloomington. At the end of the day, he's the head coach of the football program. He's not going to say that, he's going to leave. But at the same time, I guarantee you nobody at James Madison thought he was going to leave last year. So the reality of it is at some point in the near future, somebody's going to have to step up and make an investment in this guy. And I feel strongly that Pam Whitten and Scott Dolson know exactly what has to happen. And I think reality, the number is probably going to be in the 7 to 10 range. I think an SEC program is probably going to come at him with an 8.5 or 9 offer. And I think a 7 million a year with probably 1.5 in incentives is going to be enough to keep him around. The only problem I could ever see arising here is you take a look at, let's use Jimmy Sexton kind of as the baseline here. Jimmy Sexton is a coaching agent for most of you that don't know that represents just about every coach in the SEC. Now, Kalen DeBoer signed with Jimmy Sexton last year, and this is all obviously, through rumor and news feed, but essentially what these coaching agents do is they ask head coaches that they sign, what is your dream job? And essentially everything that they do from start to finish of representing these guys is step by step try to get them there. What I hope is that we are past the stage where Indiana is a stepstone school. And this is a place where we can solidify Kurt Signetti into a Kirk Ferentz type of guy where, we're keeping him around until he doesn't want to coach ball anymore. And I really do think that Scott Dolson and Pam Whitten, have that in mind and know exactly the number that he needs. The issue is, what is that and can we get there?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be. Um, Obviously, the season's gonna end. He's gonna have offers from other places. He's one of the top coaches in the country. He's shown it. Indiana is an uncharted territory, and yes, I have full faith in Pamela Whitten, Scott Dolson that they're gonna back up the Brinks truck, give everything they need to keep him to stay. At the end of the day, it's up to him. Um, they're going to match whatever offer it is that he needs. They're going to put everything out there to get him to stay. And I do think, obviously, he's the head coach of the football team. His wife would never say she doesn't like it in Bloomington. That's just not something you would ever say. He's obviously going to say he loves Bloomington, wants to stay there forever. There's no other. They're all media trained. Every coach will say that. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to him and his decision. But I really do think he has a lot of meaning behind this, bringing all these champion guys. He's real. I think he's really happy, and I truly believe he thinks he's in the right spot.
Yeah, and I think this season has kind of shown that he made a promise to Pam Whitten and Scott Dolson at the beginning of the year. He said, "If you give me mediocre resources, I will win." And here we are. We're in a great spot, 8-0. Obviously, eyeing down the college football playoff. And the reality of it is, I think unless the Alabama job opened up, I'm not sure there's a quote unquote dream job in there for Kurt Signetti other than Alabama. By the looks of things, I don't think Kalen DeBoer is going to be out at Alabama anytime in the next 25 years. I'm thinking Kurt Signetti's going to stay. I really hope that, with this new revenue share, with the way NIL's trending, I hope that Indiana can get enough boosters to rally around this program to where we start to get rid of the things of the past where we're questioning whether, can we get enough NIL to compete? Can we, build things that, are competitive with other Big Ten facilities? Can our stadium look competitive with other Big Ten stadiums? I feel like at some point, the only way to move past those things is through it.
Yeah,
And we're at a point where I think we kind of saw under Tom Allen that it's very, very hard to recruit, especially at the high school level, without, great facilities and a great NIL and great boosters. And I feel like the way Indiana's trending is the next 2 or 3 years, we're probably going to take a lot of portal guys. And after that, Kurt Signetti's going to try and build his program from this high school base that he's taking. I think we're going to need to see a Mellon camp, likely a full renovation, not just some turf. Obviously, we're moving towards having the football only weight room. That's probably in the next few months. That'll be completely done. And the next thing is just the stadium. I feel like from a facilities standpoint, we need better concourse. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about more seats. In my opinion, I don't think you move towards more seats with only, what is it, 6 or 7 sellouts in a
yeah.
year.
I think
I
that
think
state
3 or 4 years
that
down the line, that's a conversation we have. But I guess, Rick, kind of what's your opinion on the facilities? You've been around them. What needs upgraded? There's some things new, some things are very old, and I think fans would kind of like to hear that insight because a lot of it is not publicly viewed.
Yeah, one of the things you have to think about is anytime you upgrade something, there's always next year, there's always another way to upgrade it. Um, I believe that was right at the beginning of 2019 season. Terry Talon donated that locker room. Super awesome locker room, super high tech, brand new lockers, awesome kind of players lounge. But then you look the next year, Alabama does a new locker room. Now we had super nice, like kind of padded seats. Now their padded seats and their lockers recline. So all those kind of little tiny things that happened, it's just one of those things that every year things get better. I don't think they need a locker room upgrade. Kind of the main thing is a lot of other programs that I've been to in high schools and visiting, it was a lot of football specific, only football players allowed in there. Um, which even if I know Alabama came out really cool video a few weeks ago with just talking about their training table and all that, and how they had a whole football separate facility, separate chefs, and the SEC kind of does it big. I know LSU has a whole team of chefs, just for the football team, and that's something slowly, and shout out Cole Peterson. He was kind of really implemented that when he was a DFO at Indiana football, that assistant DFO. He really changed the culture of Indiana football from a food standpoint, which sounds really fat as an offensive lineman saying this, but, it's true. I mean, these are high school kids, they wanna eat good food, that's, like, one of those little things, and he, like, changed that getting meal card and stuff, which was, like, something that I know a bunch of other programs doing, and that allowed, players to now go to other restaurants, not have to come back to the facility, and use kinda your meal points at a Chipotle, at a place like that. Another big thing, I know they finally redid a bunch of the turf on the practice field and the indoor. That indoor has to go. I mean, even if you make, I know Miami, University has Miami made a brand new indoor, super nice. It's an 80-yard field. It's not a full 100, but you're not playing games in indoor. Um, if that's something it's costs too much to make 100, they already have the field, they have kind of the walls. They need to take down that roof. They need to put something else in there, some natural light. If you've been in the indoor, it's like a whole nother dimension. It's just not a fun place to be inside. It's never fun to practice in it. It's just like one of those things that does it needs to be upgraded. I think that's really the only thing that Indiana's fallen behind. They redid the turf and that, but there's still this, if you've been in there, it's like a ghost buzz. It's just one of the worst sounds you can ever hear, but I think that's really the only thing. Um, Other than that, they have amazing facilities. No knock on anything. Indoor's not terrible, but it does need to be upgraded to kind of get on that standard. Even Purdue, has some really, really awesome facilities, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. It just takes the want. They have the money to do it. It's just if the actual plan after Fred Glass was like, "I'm gonna upgrade everything," that kind of last 5 years has just kind of been nullified, and just they haven't really done anything since.
Yeah, I kind of agree on that standpoint. And I think a lot of times, from a fan standpoint, this probably sounds like who cares? We're winning football games. But the reality of it is, guys now have options, right? Guys have options to enter college. The next year they can leave and go wherever they want. Essentially, you have free agency every year. You have 1 year contracts, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that catch the eye of an 18 to 22-year-old kid. And when you're talking about guys wanting to make it to the NFL, a lot of times these facilities and these amenities and resources are the difference. I mean, just from a simple standpoint of food, when we started to move in the direction of having higher quality food, and quite frankly, before Cole Peterson came into the Indiana football program and changed all that, our entire team would not eat at the facility. Not a single person on the team would go to lunch at the facility because the food was just terrible quality. And when Cole Peterson came in and kind of flipped the entire script on that, and we started to, to get different things. One, it was a lot easier to have access to quality food, and two, from just a simple body composition standpoint, the way guys' body composition changed and the results changed on the field and in the weight room, you saw guys in a lot better shape than they were in years past. And I think that's one thing that you kind of benefit from that. 18 to 22-year-old kids likely aren't going to make the greatest decisions for themselves when it comes to food. They're going to have the most convenient things that, they know taste good. And you can't run an elite program feeding your guys crap food. It's, I would say, one of the top probably 10 factors into creating an elite athlete is nutrition. And I think, as kind of Isaac Hicks and Cole Peterson and Aaron Wellman kind of meshed into what you're seeing now, and I think Derek Owings has taken that to an even greater level. I really think you're going to start to see Indiana turn out just better looking athletes on the field.
Yeah, and that's a food's a huge part of that. From a nutrition standpoint, creating elite athletes. But Indiana is 8-0 on Michigan State next week. 3:30 kickoff on Peacock. That is super lame, but we'll talk about that on Thursday when we release our next episode of the Rock Report for a Michigan State preview. Talk about some matchups in that game, talking about that quarterback battle. We'll find out soon. sure all the fans will all find out at the same time. Probably tomorrow, some media availability. We'll get an update from Signetti and that staff. But we have freshman quarterback at Michigan State. Hopefully, we have work back, and it'll be a really nice, pretty cool game in East Lansing. The brass spittoon is on the line. We'll talk about that in the upcoming days, and that's the episode of the Rock Report.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Big week, big rivalry week. We're real excited for the Thursday preview, and then the following week coming up, we'll have some big announcements. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for listening, and go Hoosiers.